Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Good evening. I've come today with my favorite topic um, about the us, and so bring your tea. I have mine. Your coffee, your wine, whatever, and we're going to go on a little voyage today of usness. So I was thinking that for some of you, it would be very helpful to talk about the felt sense of the us. And for others of you, there'll be a sigh. Oh no, what the hell is she talking about? She goes on and on about this felt sense of the us. It doesn't make any sense. And those of you who feel that way might say, the felt sense is of me. It's mine. It's my own personal felt sense. You can't tell me that I'm part of an us and that my felt sense isn't all pristine and private and mine. And I understand that. I understand that. And I also think it's very, very valuable, this sense of mine, of me, of I'll only be an us with people I choose to be an us with. And the rest of those crazy people, I'm not an us with them. That in self-psychology, well, maybe I'll back up a minute. There are often two approaches. There's the approach of the individual. We are born and die alone. And whatever we do or think is our responsibility. Oh, I have coffee being delivered to me. What do you think of this? Noreen, you want to say hello to my group?
Good morning, friends and family. How are you guys? Okay, bye. Have a nice day with Lynn.
Noreen is my partner's helper, and she's very kind to me. I mean, it really is such a striking example for me of being in us, of not being, not living and dying alone when my partner became sick and needs 24-hour help. And then I go from being an individual when I was single to being a couple to being a family suddenly. And there is no sort of decision that I can make that doesn't that doesn't affect the little family. But anyway, back to living and dying alone and having responsibility for what we do and think and feel. And then there's the other approach of feeling always the usness and not finding the meanness, not finding the mindness. In self-psychology, we have the term self-delineating self-object experience. I know that's a weird gobbledygook. But what it means is that if we don't have a sense of mine and me and private and individual, then we need in therapy to develop that sense of what I think, what I want. It's very, very important. On the other hand, if we only have a sense of me and everything is my responsibility and everything is up to me and everything that goes wrong is my fault, and um, and I'm living and dying alone, then we need. I'm going to coin a phrase, and maybe it will become as famous as self-delineating self-object experience. My phrase would be self-expanding experience. So that's what we're going to try today. But back to those of you who feel like my felt sense is mine, it comes in my body, and nobody will know it unless I put it into words. That experience reminds me of the experience of finding the felt sense at the beginning. I had the experience, and many people that I know had the experience of at first saying, what is this felt sense? This is ridiculous. It's not a feeling, it's not a thought, it's not, what is it and where is it? And I can't do that. Have you raised your hand if you felt that way at the beginning of, yeah. And then you got to the point where you were curious and had an open mind about the felt sense, at least a little bit, or maybe it took you by surprise. For me, I had to just hang around it and slowly make friends with the concept of it, because I saw that it did great things. It's an amazing innovation to really, it changes everything. And suddenly I got it. So, wow, you can think with it, you can relate with it, you can do anything with this thing. And so I'm hoping that the felt sense of the us could be that kind of experience where at first you say, this is gobbledygook. And then slowly you say, oh, of course. I always knew that. I mean, in a way, we always know that we're not separate, that we can't. Winnicott said there's no such thing as a baby. And therapists learn as they go along that you don't just do therapy on the person. It's not like a surgeon, maybe even a surgeon, it's not like that, but that you develop a partnership. And part of developing the partnership is this very natural felt sense of the us, felt sense of what the person is feeling underneath what they're saying, and how that's impacting me and how I'm impacting them. And it does take years to learn that. But when you learn it, it's just a part of you, that felt sense of the us that we have in therapy. So, what is the felt sense of the us? Enough introduction here. What I thought I would do is the simple idea of what, why, and how. Does that seem like a good way to proceed?
Sure.
We're all, familiar with that. So, what is this felt sense of the us? I think of this movie, Member of the Wedding. It's an old movie. And the little girl is so close to the couple getting married or wants to be close to them, wants to be included. And she talks about them as the we of me, the we of me. And I love that phrase. We can have, well, we do have a mine of me, and we also have a we of me. The us is not just me and you. This is the hard thing to get our minds around. But everything in the felt sense realm is hard to get your mind around. But the we is me and this expanded me that includes everybody. And this way of thinking, Jean talked about as how the individual isn't a pristine entity, a separate entity, but the individual is derived from the environment, from the context, from the us. Can we just let our minds go there for a minute? We are unique, but we come out of the mother-baby unity, right, of the bodies being united. We come out, we're derived from our culture, from our time of history, from our families, as well as our genes, which, you know, are also cultures and families. And who knows what else, right? I think that if you're not familiar with the felt sense of the us, that going right there is very difficult. So I'm going to start with us thinking, sort of getting our minds around something, making a home for it. And then the us feeling will come later. It could be the other way around for you. And if it is, that's good too, that the feeling comes before the thinking. I think for me, I have to think something, unless it takes me by surprise. So us thinking is what we're going to emphasize today, and then see if the us felt sense can come out of that. So what is the felt sense of the us? It isn't you and me added up together. It's the whole of everything that that our body systems are open to in the world. All of it, the news, the weather, the mood, all the people that we live with, they're all part of this mind of me. And we separate it out, but it's all there with us. And sometimes we have to make a special intention to say, well, what is my felt sense of this political situation? They're saying this, they're saying, what's speaking to me? It's kind of like we are a conversation with the universe. We are this interaction. I have liked to say to people, we we are made up of interaction. But then that gives you a very false view, because you might think of yourself as this entity, and all these little interactions are in there making you up. And if you have terrible interactions in childhood, then you have to get rid of them when you're an adult, get them out of you, because then you'll be the you that you were meant to be. You following me? It's not like that. It's that we are a process. And this process is not just an individual process. It is also an individual process, but it's a world process. Let's stop here for a minute and see what you got so far. I see all these faces looking at me like, what?
I don't know, Lynn, if I understood you correctly, what struck me, if I got what you actually said, was that the felt sense of the us is not just me and other people, but me and everything. Is that correct? Or not?
That in my body, I have all of the others that I am co-living with. You know, in a way, when we focus, focusing is like a self-delineating process. You know, we go inside and we say, well, how am I? What is all of this? And it's a very natural way of sort of feeling what's impacting us, feeling how it's impacting us, feeling both the me and the we, in a sense. We can feel, when we pause, the impact on us. Let's imagine for a minute. Oh, I want to say, I am not trying to convert you to us thinking, and maybe I'm trying to sell you on something. So those of you who feel like, that may be coming from the felt sense of my eagerness to share something that's important to me. But I am very open to your wanting to stay with the individual feeling. So you can point it out to me if I sound like I'm selling it to you. But I am asking you to play with me, to experiment, to see what this perspective does. And that's what we'll be wanting to do today. So let's just imagine for a minute the sense in me of the group. Just then, when I asked you what you were getting, and there was a moment of silence, and I could see some confusion on people's faces, that was my felt sense of the us, of this group. Then imagine yourself with your close ones, your partner, your family, the we of me, and that's an us. You know, we're going for a walk. We're watching TV. That us, domestic us. And then imagine yourself as part of the us of your country, where you come from, your culture. Just see what it feels like to say, oh, we're like this. I can feel the way of being an American. It's sort of like, yes, we're crazy Americans. Something like that. It's the feeling. And then just see what it feels like to imagine yourself as the we of humans. We humans are very complicated, my God. And we may be at the verge of an evolutionary step of relating rather than killing each other, which would be really needed for our species. We humans. So let's just have a couple of comments about what that's like. Were you able to get a sense of those different levels of systems that we're a part of, that we're embedded in, that we're interacting with?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
In order to get a hold of a felt sense, usually you need a handle. And I don't particularly like the handle felt sense of the us. So, and I've been trying to figure out why. And it's because I think that the felt sense of the us often feels uncomfortable to me. It's not a feeling that I like. So I want to leave it unformulated. And
that's
the handle
interesting.
for it.
Wow.
Sometimes I feel the felt sense of the us as in conflict with me.
With me, the felt sense of the I. The felt sense of the us is in conflict with the felt sense of the I.
Yes.
That's so interesting.
Which if you go to the us of my family, it's the felt sense of my family is to feel that way.
Yes, yes, yes. One thing it's important to say is that when I am talking about the us, I'm not talking about closeness or compatibility. I mean, even when I think of the felt sense of the I, there's conflict within me, right? But I can understand that resistance because it brings up all of your deepest conflicts. Yeah. Anybody else have a comment?
I have a comment, but I'm not really sure what I'm going to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in that way, it's like the felt sense of me. So it's from that, then I know that I'm an individual and making up whatever I'm going to say in the moment. The us I find oppressive if someone believes it's an us, you know. And the oppression comes from the sense of whatever power that has to conform, or that I need to conform to that. You know, I can be an adult, and I can be a decent human being without actually taking on anything in the moment. You know, so it's to the extent it's non-violent if there's an invitation of dominion, not domination. So the us, I just don't You know, it's like, I don't know what you were talking about, Lynn. You said that you were selling us something, so I think you are, and I don't like that because I don't know what I'm being sold, you know. So I'm here by invitation, and I like being with other individuals, you know. So that's coming up. The
That's
counseling.
well said, Pauline. Are you willing to let this salesman have a second step there? When you say the felt sense of the us is like domination or can be domination, see if you
If it's not explicit what it is, you know, if I'm in a church,
right.
if I'm in a church, I know, you know that the culture. But if I'm in a place that's by invitation, you know, I'm assuming that there's an us that's democratic and that it's not oppressive.
So what I'd like you to sort of feel into is this felt sense of the us as oppressive. Jim's was the felt sense of the us was uncomfortable and maybe oppressive also. Yours is the feeling of being obligated and coerced.
No. It's
No.
not. It isn't. It is that it is if it's unconscious. If there's an I that's unconscious, you know, and that there's an agenda, or there's someone that believes that they're in charge, or you know, then I pick it up, you know.
Yes.
But I show up as an individual, and that it's a good enough, you know, adult group.
Yes. What you're describing is a very clear felt sense of holding on to the mindness and making sure that you aren't invaded when it's unconscious. I don't want you to feel
I don't know how I'd be invaded. But yeah, I like the distinction. I don't know how I'd be invaded. It would be even worse.
Well, yeah. What the bad news, but you don't have to believe this, Pauline, at all. But the bad news of my message is that there's always unconscious influence for all of us. We don't recognize how all the people, all the culture, or are how they are part of us, and it is very uncomfortable not to know that. But we can't be conscious of it when we are a process that's always changing moment by moment. But focusing is so wonderful because it gives us access to it, to what's unconscious in little steps.
There's original intereffecting that needs to be pointed out because you don't want to look at it. You're already invaded. And instead of warding off invasion, you have to recognize, oh, I've already lost.
Lynn,
Yeah.
I'd like to say something.
Yes, please, BJ.
You said something about moment to moment, and then Jim, you pointed out that the process, the interaffecting. For me, at this moment, the felt sense of the us came as someone trying to push a truck, and another car stops, and between you're able to push the truck off the road, and that's this moment for me. So this morning, the felt sense of the us is a beautiful thing for me.
Mm,
In another moment, maybe just 5 minutes from now, I'll share the less upbeat sense of the us. So there's that. It feels to me like something that comes. And then on the other hand, it feels to me like an intention. I can choose when I enter a group until it makes itself fully known one way or the other. I can choose to assume goodwill, to set my own intention that this is going to be an empowering and a well environment.
right, right. And even if it isn't, you're still an us with it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying, and you're right, BJ, you really got what I was trying to say there, that there are two things. There's one thing about that we are interdependent creatures, as trees are, as all animals are. One individual animal can't survive or isn't itself without the rest of its species or its herd or whatever. So there's this original interaffecting that Jim is talking about, that we are this. There's nothing we can do about it. There's no way. Jean says even the recluse is on an island away from them. There's still the them in the recluse, right? The recluse is living toward them by being on this island. So we're always interaction with the other, even if it's pushing the other away or trying to get control of the other or trying to please the other, whatever it is, it's part of us. And there's another thing here that I'm trying to sell you on, which is that focusing on the us makes for a different kind of relationship. That when you focus on it, it's not just automatic and unconscious, but you're actually focusing on it, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. We're not talking about that, what the felt sense is, but whatever it is, to unfold it gives us an enormous what can we say, vehicle for understanding and navigating
Yes.
all the us's.
I want to say one more thing.
Sure.
When Jim, when you said, you know that you've already lost, you said, I don't remember the context, but I remember the feeling of entering a space knowing I've already lost. And that brought to mind a situation I was in where, as I entered the meeting, I knew I had lost. And then, Lynn, what you said was, even though I was going to push as I could to make space in the room, I already kind of went to the other side when I was going to step out of that room, having lost. And then there was this we. And where was I? It was either New York or Washington, D.C., to step out of this building and see the world is still there. They're still in us. I no longer have an identity. I'm stripped of things that were important to me. And I had already lost. It was horrific. And you know, it was kind of like quite by accident. There was a shoe store and I went in and bought a pair of boots.
That's a wonderful thing to do when you've lost.
Yes, it was like unconsciously, I said, well, if I'm going to be having to do a lot of moving around, a lot of walking, a lot of something to make it out here, I'm going to need some boots. And I don't wear them anymore, but when I see them, that usness of that big city, that you said navigate is what brought those two together for me.
Right.
Even when I've lost, there's still an us over there and in me.
Well, there's still an us in the feeling of you're being the loser in this us. That
Yeah.
in that feeling, there's winners and losers,
Yes.
and you're part of the us that's lost. It's like a fight, a boxing match or something like that, and there's the us of these two people.
A board game, like a board
Or-
game.
Yes, like a
You
board game.
lose,
Right.
but then you get up and go do something else.
You lose, but you're still part of that board game.
Yes,
You don't like the identity of the loser, but you're still, that's your identity in the us at that moment.
that's right.
And
At the
then
moment.
to just right, and then you affirm the mindness, the meanness by buying the boots and said, well, I can still buy a pair of boots.
I was thinking of them as military boots, but that's me. I wanted to go back to the internalized, and what Jim was saying, that when you were talking about the exercise of, imagine the us of your family, and I went, no. And then you said, imagine the us of your country. No. And I was, I was thinking that some of us or all of us are so full of what some call introjects. We've already, I feel like it's so crowded in here already.
Yes.
It's not quite altars, but
Right.
something
Right.
like that.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
That there's not any more room really and a lot of them are just not, I'm trying to get rid of them. I don't want more.
Yes, yes. But do you see the model that you have in your mind then is that you are an entity and these things are coming in and there's no more room in there because they're introjects, they're things in you. And what I'm inviting you to play with is the perspective that they're in motion and you're in motion. And even if there's a trauma from childhood and that impacts on you, that's part of the interaction. But I think that so many times we think of ourselves as these containers, and then these invading things are in us. Especially people that watch the news a lot just feel, often just filled up with this, like there's no room for anything else. But let me go on because I want to sell you on
Wait a
what
minute, can you just finish that thought? So when you feel filled up, what do you do in that moment?
when you feel filled up, you say, I am an interaction with all of this. I think Machiel talks about this a lot, that this is all part of me now. And then what does it mean to me? What is this filled up feeling? As if I was a container filled up. That's a fine metaphor, but we can't take that literally. And then not taking it literally is like, what is this feeling of filled up? And then we can widen that. And that's all part of my self-expanding. experience. I want to show you how this is, we've been talking about the what. Now I want to talk about the why. And we have to get to the how, but I want you to have breakout rooms, so we'll see. If we don't get to the how, you're gonna say, oh no, she sold me on this and now I don't know how. The why is that the intentional part makes a shift. Instead of the doer and done to, and even the feeling of being filled up is like they're doing this to me. They're filling me up. And what we need, I mean, you're going to laugh at the grandiosity of this, but what we need is to get beyond the doer and done to, the polarization, the us against them. That's what we need to survive. And I'm going to give you a little experience and see what it does. It may do nothing. Okay? Let's go. Are you ready? Take a breath and settle in your chair. There's nothing that you have to get or have to believe or have to understand or have to figure out. We're just playing. And let's see if we could find an adversarial conflict kind of interaction with somebody or some people. Could be the Americans or could be the AIs or whatever. Just raise your hand when it could be something very little or it could be a big conflict. Just raise your hand, but don't pick something that's overwhelming because then you'll shut down. We have to start with the 2-pound weight before we do the 10-pound weight. Raise your hand when you've found somebody that you feel conflictual with or uneasy or wary. And then, since we're getting ready for our writing thing, if you have a pen and paper or can do it inside yourself, what is this dis-ease with this person? And just write or think anything the way it comes to you. They're like this, they did this to me, I don't like that, I can't trust them, this one is a snake in the grass, I feel so betrayed by this one. Just let yourself open to all of those feelings that come at first as doer and done to. A me and them. And just let that come just as it is. Maybe get to the crux of what you're upset about there. That takes a real minute. A whole minute in focusing is a long time. What is it that I don't like or can't bear, threatened by. And just find a handle for that. Just a word or an image or a phrase for what's the problem. Raise your hand when you get a handle for the problem. Good. And now the next step, when you're ready, is to feel yourself standing back a little bit. And envisioning you and them as an us. See if you could describe the problem from the perspective of the us. So I might say, Trump and I have different visions for the country. We're in battle inside me, or something. Or we have a complete, I'm thinking of a different conflict. We have a complete breakdown in trust, and we're very wary of each other. So I want you to find, and this is a big step, I want you to find a we statement for you and the other. We hate each other. We have nothing in common. Whatever the we statement is, we love each other so much that we're merged. We are in conflict about separation and togetherness. Whatever the problem is, find a we statement. And picture you and them as struggling with something. And then see if you can write down that sentence about us. And when you're ready, come back to the room. And I know I didn't give you very much time for these huge steps. Okay, let's see if you can mark this place, how far you've gotten, so you can come back to it. Jean always would make sure of that. People can find that spot again. Okay, so let's come back together, even if this process isn't finished. It's like I'm wanting you to take an evolutionary step for the species in 5 minutes. Right? And I want to ask you how it was to shift from me against them to think of it as a particular, very particular kind of an us.
I can share, Lynn.
Go ahead, Nancy.
So it's always what you offered, and seeing things like this, it's always such a beautiful thing and such a beautiful shift. When I do that, and I take the distance, and I get the felt sense of we, and something that we both share. Well, the phrase that came to me was, we both have been heard.
Mm.
And then if back before, I could have felt threatened, I could have felt attacked, I could have felt I had to defend or protect myself with a certain person. And but then when if I choose, you use the word intentionality, and if I choose to allow for a felt sense to form, or to focus on what's going on in me, and why am I feeling like that, or what is it that is feeling like that, I can move on to, oh, there's something that's heard here, and I can realize why I'm feeling it as an attack, as that I have to defend myself, even though the other person might not be doing that, but then I realize that they might also be coming from a place of having been heard. And that, when I get there, it brings such a different way of being with any other person. It brings a gentleness, it brings an understanding, it brings even compassion, or compassion for it, and for myself too. So it's such a different
Yes, it includes you, and it includes the other. And maybe like your sentence would be, we are a hurt interaction. That's the kind of interaction we are right now. I always loved this little thing that Jean did in I guess it was in a demonstration, where he said to the client, we are like this now. I don't know if you could see me. We are like this now. And I love that, because there's so much in it. It's not like you're doing this to me or I'm doing this to you, but we are like this now. And that's so much, there's so much so much freedom in that. Anybody? Yeah.
I need some clarification from Natty. Were you saying hurt or heard?
Hurt.
H-U-R-T.
Okay.
Hurt.
If they felt heard, maybe there wouldn't be a problem.
Exactly.
We want to go from hurt to heard. That could be a wonderful slogan.
And
Anybody else?
I'm
Anything? Yeah.
also aware of, you can't, or in my own example, you can't go immediately, from I'm feeling small or negligible or whatever. You can't go from that to I'm feeling one with the other person. You just can't, you have to go through the steps.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. You
Yeah.
have to go through the steps of your own experience, and we need that. We need to get that, I would say, off our chest, but we need to articulate that.
Yeah.
But then it's not being, when we go to the us, what I'm trying to communicate is that it isn't necessarily going to an open, loving place. It's going to a place where there's a we, and the we could be we want to kill each other,
Yes.
right? That could be the we. It's not necessarily feeling loving. But even when I shift from these people are going to kill us, or these people are going to kill me, to we are hating each other, wanting to kill each other. Even that makes a difference.
Yeah.
I had so much trouble with this.
I can imagine, Liz.
Right. Because I felt that I was the only one of the two of us wanting to be a we. I just felt that the other person, who's an old friend, wouldn't even, I don't know, would sort of dismiss my conflict
Yes,
in
yes,
in a
yes.
way. I'm not even really allowed to have the conflict.
Yes, yes. So this is a wonderful point that you're making, that you and I are making. Thinking of the we is an incredible freedom, because it doesn't matter what the other person demands or doesn't demand. There's a picturing of the dynamic between you, and you don't need permission to think of the dynamic. The dynamic between you is that you want more closeness, more mattering than they do. You want more recognition than they do, and there's that unevenness. And so when you picture it as the we, it doesn't, you don't have to care whether they want you, there's this unevenness. It's just really accepting what is in this interaction and finding a name for it. And then that gives you a little bit of space.
So when you're doing the we, you're an I doing it. That's a relief.
Yes, yes, yes. You're an I. It's your felt sense of the us, but it's also how that us is coming in you, and you're able to get getting a handle is the big, 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 big thing of everything, right? And when we're overwhelmed and confused, there is no handle.
Liz, thank you so much for saying those words. And when you said not permitted, all of a sudden, what came to me was, and that's so I'm asking this, is it that the other person won't even acknowledge that there is an issue? That you alone see it as an issue?
That maybe reasonable, normal people feel the way she feels.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I'm a weirdo
Yeah, okay, good, good. Yeah,
and a
I get it.
child and shouldn't
Yeah.
be even taken seriously.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm,
The
mhm.
thing about an us that I'm trying to sell you on is that if you think about it as we just are an us, we were born in us. We that's what the process of us is. And you don't need anybody's permission to be an us. You might need their permission to speak to them or something, visit them, but you don't need permission to be an us because you are an us.
Mm. Mm.
Anybody
No,
else?
I have something to add to what has been discussed.
Yeah.
When you are the I approaching an us that is more an us on your side, sometimes it requires much more work for you to make the non-us into an us. So what that means is that all your effort, in a way, at least that's my experience, you have to put so much effort in taking the wider perspective. I mean, you are the one who needs to do the work of taking the wider perspective and reconfigure a new idea of what us is inside of you. Because the us that you think is an us is not there.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. This statement that I'm going to make is, I've decided, my slogan. And probably some of you know this already because I say it all the time. You can't change the other person, but you can change the dynamic. Let's just take that in for a minute. If somebody is indifferent to you, disrespects you, doesn't care about you, you can turn somersaults and tumblesalts, and they still will feel that way, right? You can't convince them. You can't convince the other person to be different. I mean, what we do is we try to control them. We try to stay away from them. We try to do all kinds of things. But you can change the dynamic by taking the perspective of the us. And that isn't a lot of work. It's a lot of work always to get a felt sense. I mean, focusing is a lot of work, but it can happen. It can happen in 10 minutes or something when you know where to look for it. That this us that you're talking about is an uneven, maybe it's an unfair, maybe it's a discrepant us. And then you say, oh, we're like this. What? And then you can focus more on, well, what is this us? You know, how is this living in me? I really wanted to give you time in a breakout room. And I think we should do that, even though we would only have 10 minutes. Okay? It would be, maybe we should do partners because it would be easier to do 10 minutes. What do you think?
Lynn, can I
Yeah.
say something first?
Yes, of course, you can always say something.
Okay, just want to check because by having the felt sense of the I and having the felt sense of the us, okay, I find it easier to repositioning the felt sense, the physical, sort of physical felt sense, physical position of the felt sense by taking it out from within to the in-between. It's like,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
now you
yes.
have the felt sense here, and the felt sense is now in between.
Yes, 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 yes. I once did a workshop, an in-person workshop, and the name of it was The Inner is the Between. And that's what you're saying. The inner is the between. And nobody wanted to sign up for this workshop except for one Buddhist who I hadn't known and who didn't know me. And I have to go to that workshop. But everybody else was like, what? The inner is the between. And when you find that between place, it gives you freedom.
Thanks for confirming that.
Okay, let's have partners for 10 minutes and we will come back at we'll come back in 10 minutes. Okay. Okay, see you in 10 minutes. Have a good experience. We're just going to share where we are with this conflict that we have been working with. How it feels to shift from the I and you to the us. Hi, there you are. We have just a few minutes to share about our breakout room experience, and then Dorothy has a surprise poem for us.
Surprise poem.
It's a surprise because I couldn't open it last night, so I don't know what it is. So how was your breakout room?
Short.
Short, yeah. Yeah. Maybe we'll have a part 2 and we'll talk about the how, and we'll have more time in the breakout room.
Well,
Yes.
the interaction in the breakout room was full of kindness and care, and there's many things that everyone have said, and what you've said, Lynn, also, that slowly brings compassion, brings sensitivity to our own self-experience and those of others. We are living interactions, but we also carry with us, as we discussed in the breakout room, our own baggage of suffering, which is always an interaction every moment when we talk, but it's not necessarily shared, and it's not even sometimes even conscious for ourselves.
Right.
So I don't go too much in that, but yes, we could do a chapter 2 and 3 and 4 about how it is, how we are with what we believe is outside, which in fact there is a reality there, but that also we're fueling it, with the level of our own consciousness and our own development. So for me, the interaction that we have in a group, I feel the stimulation that we offer to each other is a gift. So really glad to be here. So if somebody else has something to say.
Yes, thank you, Mikhail. June, you look like you want to say something.
I just feel like saying beautifully said, Miguel, very sensitive and lovely, and sums it up. Thank you.
One more. Sharing my felt sense of the us. I could be wrong, but my felt sense of the us is that someone else wants to speak.
Lynn, Alyssa has her hand up.
Yeah,
Oh,
yes.
listen.
Yeah, I want to say something. Even though it's a very short time, but we have a very good interaction. I love the interaction. And then through the process of listening, I got a felt sense, wow, something that's changed inside. Yes. So thank
Wow.
you. Yeah,
Something
my
has
partner is
changed inside.
definitely very good listener. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we'll have Dorothy's surprise poem.
This poem has been a favorite of mine for many, many years, so I very happily thought of this poem when I was choosing. It's called The Waking by Theodore Rothke, an American poet. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. I feel my fate in what I cannot fear. I learn by going where I have to go. We think by feeling. What is there to know? I hear my being dance from ear to ear. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. Of those so close beside me, which are you? God bless the ground. I shall walk softly there and learn by going where I have to go. Light takes the tree, but who can tell us how? The lowly worm climbs up a winding stair. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. Great nature has another thing to do to you and me. So take the lively air and lovely, learn by going where to go. This shaking keeps me steady. I should know what falls away is always and is near. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. I learn by going where I have to go.
Oh, that's perfect. That's so beautiful. Such a felt sense poem. Wow. Well, put the name in the chat and thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank all of you for playing with me this morning. And I'm hoping that you, as we go along, can help me to articulate this better than I've been able to do so far. So any thoughts or help that you can give me, write to me and let me know of ways of images, metaphors, handles. And I'll see you next time. See you next week. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.